Must survive the Mings. Must survive the Mings. Must survive the Mings.
Solve the World. A fictional adventure told in 100 episodes. Episode 48. Injustice Must Be Served. Good afternoon. The President of the United States said as he began his address to the nation, "Because, ultimately, I do not value this president, and the things he's about to do, I'd rather not inform you of his name. By some measures, he was a great man. If he'd received the position of president in a time of peace, his decisiveness and surely his gutsiness may have actually aided the nation, or even the world as a whole. As it stands now, though, can anyone rightfully stand in his defense? I think not. On this day, we take time to listen to his bully pulpit, not so much because of the new initiative he is about to outline, but because of one particular set of eyes standing behind him. These times are troubling. Never in our history have we faced a pandemic on this scale. Never before has our resolve been tested to such an extreme. But in these dark hours, I think of the nation's dark night of the soul, when President Roosevelt waited to hear whether our boys would be victorious on the sands of Normandy. I think of the 18-year-old boys running up the sands of Iwo Jima, our fathers flying over Tokyo, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. They fought not for themselves. I think now of our brave soldiers who nearly froze to death in the forests of France, awaiting oncoming Nazi storms. They fought not for themselves. No, they fought for hope. Hope that there would come a day when they could live in peace. Behind me are 18 of our children. Each one of these young souls has lost their parents. The world has spat at them, and they grieve. We grieve with them. We grieve with them. It is up to us now, just as it was up to our forefathers who valiantly fought, struggled, and defeated the enemies of World War II, to do more than just grieve. We are scared. There's no denying it, and there's no reason to be embarrassed. Our time is a frightening time. Come up here. This is Tarek. A boy no older than 8 marched up to the president's side. The president put his arm around the stoic youngster. Tarek did the unthinkable, as his own mother fell on her knees in front of him, pleading her only son to come into her plague-marked arms. He did what had to be done. No child should have to do this. Nevertheless, it had to be done, or young Tarek wouldn't be here today. Without eye contact, the president brushed the boy aside. Tarek stepped back, falling in line with the 17 other children standing behind the President of the United States. Tarek will have troubles. He will have nightmares. We don't live in a world anymore without nightmares. Today, I've signed papers authorizing an executive order. We will use every resource we have to make sure we do our part to keep Tarek safe. He's already sacrificed so much. He, and millions of children like him, deserve, nation, to live. Let's give them that. Let's give them that. Let's make sure that no child in our wonderful country is an orphan. That is why I'm putting Operation No More Orphans into place. Operation No More Orphans, or ONMO for short, will begin now with the 18 children you see behind me. Later today, centers in Washington, New York, in Chicago, Houston, St. Louis, Seattle, and San Francisco will open their doors. In the coming weeks, we will expand our operation with hopes to open a center in every town of over 50,000 people all throughout the nation. We must protect the next generation. If you know a child without parents, take them to one of these centers. If you want your own child to be safe, no matter what, please, take them in. Any child, no matter the situation, between the ages of 4 and 14 will be protected. I promise you, our nation, America, will provide and keep our children safe. There are no orphans in this nation any longer. Each child is our son. Each child is our daughter. When a child is brought to an Onmo center, that child will be transported to an undisclosed location. The location will be safeguarded night and day. This location will be safer than Fort Knox. No disease will get in there. Every power under the sun will be employed to keep our children safe. Because safety is our first and last priority until the disease ravaging our nation is fully purged, until the last infected tear is shed, the children will remain safe and secure at the Onmo safe haven. When a child is brought to an Onmo center, parents, if you give your child to us, know this, they will live. They will live. They will thrive. America will nurse them. America will bring them up in a manner worthy of your honor. However, because of the intense nature of this operation and our situation as a whole, no contact with any child within our care is authorized. I know this is hard. You will have to say goodbye. I pray for a day when these children may be safely returned to you, may be safely returned to their loved ones. But until that day comes, we must survive and we must protect the next generation. Thank you. Remain vigilant and stay tuned to your local broadcast about where you can find an Onmo center near you. God bless you, America. I stand with you. Your nation stands with you. You are not alone. Thank you. Behind the president, second row, third from the left, little Scout Further stood silently, wondering what her future would bring her. As soon as the broadcast ended, Scout and her new tribe of 18 were caravanned to the undisclosed Onmo safe haven, her new home. Coming from Louisiana, she was not prepared for the cold. Before he ever met Jennifer, Miles made a promise to himself. He would not use his mental arsenal to win over Jen. If she was to like him, even grow to love him, she'd do it on her own accord. He wasn't going to go up into her brain and mangle things up for his own gain. This was a promise that he'd nearly broken once before. But then, way down in the hole of Pish Taco's horrible island, he'd found a way out. He devised a plot that omitted any mental strong-arming. Could he do the same here? This place was drugging Jen. Could he actually overcome the intoxication sprawling through her veins with a hand tied behind his back? Was it worth it to stay true to his own promise? No one would know. Jen would never know. No one else would ever think to ask. Only Miles himself would carry the burden of knowledge. Even then, he could probably plop the memory of his personal betrayal out of his noggin if it bothered him bad enough. Who knows, maybe he'd already broken his vow and erased the thought of it, thus making this whole internal conflict moot. So, what was the point in tempting fate? Miles mulled these self-conversations over and over as he waited for the clock to strike 11:30. He'd received a note at dinner from someone he didn't recognize. A man that bared some resemblance to himself, Miles remarked. The note said that Jen would meet him outside the sleeping quarters 30 minutes before midnight. The note ended with the ominous sentence, "I have a plan." It was signed JD, known here as Naime. Leaving the heritage room, Naime was a mess. Thankfully, her pal in all times of trouble, Marshall Winston, was waiting for her. "You okay?" "No." "What happened? What'd he say?" have to do something. Tonight. Something I don't want to do. Naima was walking briskly. Marshal Winston struggled to keep up while still maintaining his always suave, always not caring demeanor. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. That stopped her. Naima froze in her tracks, spun around and stared Marshal down, her eyes poised and strong, yet filling with water. How can you say that? Hey, calm down. I don't need to. Just scratch your tattoo a little. That'll help. No, it won't. It'll make this moment more endurable. Trust me. As he said it, Marshal scratched the space between his two shoulder blades, the place where his intoxicated tattoo burned into his own skin. Like a pull, Naima stood unblinkingly, waiting for Marshal to say something inflammatory that she could scoff at. Above all, she was angry right now. She needed someone to direct her anger at. Tell me what happened. You said... Tears rolled down Naima's cheeks. You said the center never kills. Did you lie to me? No. The timbre of Marshal's voice rang true. He believed his own words. This wasn't the person to direct Naima's rage at. He was still one of the good guys. Miles flashed in Jen's mind. Marshal and Miles had played similar roles in Jen's life. Could she really do this? What choice did she have? Come on, let's take a walk where noisy ears won't hear a lick of our conversation. Let's get somewhere safe. But, don't you have your work shift? Naima stared up at Marshal's chiseled jawline. Screw it. I'm with you. This was not center speak. Marshal Winston and Naima were not taught to empathize like this, to self-sacrifice. This wasn't how one gained knowledge. They walked into the woods. While they meandered through nature, Naima did her best to recall everything Father Beck had told her. I can't do it. I can't kill Miles. You shouldn't have to. But you said, yeah, well, maybe I was wrong. Still, what do you think Fa's doing here? To get me, I guess. Why would he risk all this just to get you? I don't know, maybe to help hunt for Merkel? Do you know where Merkel is? Of course not, I don't know anything. So why would you be so necessary to retrieve? I don't know. That is what we need to find out. Without realizing it, Naima was giving in, scratching her tattoo. What if he's with the Piper? Maybe Father Beck is right. That's certainly a possibility. How would you find that out, though? I don't know. Naima, look, there's just no way out of this. Maybe before we could have figured something out, but now, I don't see a way out of it. Someone's gotta die. I can't kill Miles. Even if he's an agent of the Piper. I can't kill Miles. Even if he's Satan incarnate. I can't kill Miles. Jen was a broken record, her thoughts flipping back every time she got to the end of the sentence. I can't kill Miles. 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 Kill Miles. I can't kill Miles. Kill Miles. 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 Can't kill Miles. If you don't do it, Lori's dead. Yeah, and first she'll kill me. No. That we can stop. I'll wait in the dark. First sign of her, I'll take her out. She'll never touch you. I promise. Why would you do that? No empathy, right? But Lori's a good person. No. No one's good. That's why places like this exist. Wait. The ropes! Marshall gave an unknowing twist to the head. Miles is athletic. If we set him at the edge, right next to the rope, we can put on a play. Huh? Lori will be watching. So, we just have to play act. I'll tell Miles what's up. I'll push him, and he'll grab the rope. He'll just have to hang long enough to convince Lori he fell. Naima smiled. She'd outsmarted the box she'd been thrown into. She solved the puzzle. Solved the center. And then what? Miles said. When they don't find a body at the bottom of the pit, they'll know you lied. Miles will figure something out by then. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Too risky. Everything's risky, Marshall, and this is the only way no one dies. Don't you see? It's kind of perfect, actually. Marshall still looked unconvinced. Now it was time for Naime to comfort and console. It'll work out, Marshall. Things always do with Miles. He's good like that. But I need you on my side. You won't say anything, will you? I can trust you, right? Of course. I'll follow. Behind, just in case something goes awry. I'll make sure Lori doesn't do anything stupid. Can you deliver a note to Miles to meet me? Yeah. Okay. Then we're set. Okay. Marshall confessed, sighing. We're set. Because murderous plots always take place under full moons, this night was no different. The big moon casted a bright but eerie light on the center that evening. At 11:30, the moon rose big, the thick forest using its rays to cast deep shadows. Naima was a bit bothered, actually, by the moon's brightness. The more light there was, the more chance Lori might see something, like tension on the pit ropes, or a body clinging to said ropes just over the lip of the deep drop. So this was it. Naima's heart beat fast. Miles Fa, known at the center as Uznai Vraga, stood in the moonlight watching her as she made her way to him. Shh, Naima said, still a good deal away from Miles. Don't say anything. Walk with me. Let me do the talking. Without touching, shaking hands, kissing on the cheek, anything, the two turned and walked beside each other into the night forest, towards the pit and the wisps. They marched in silence for some time, 10-15 minutes, before Naima felt secure. She spoke in a low, deep voice. You really screwed things up today. Miles said nothing. Then, along the path to the pit, past the now daggerless tree, Naima told Miles the entire plan for the evening, leaving out no detail, except the one curious little tidbit that Marshal Winston would also be waiting in the shadows, in case of emergency. Do you understand? Naima asked. Miles was silent, being true to the letter of Naima's law. You can answer me. Yes, I understand. There it is. Naima pointed to the pit, sparkling from below and yet still the distance, with the glow of the wisps. The last paces were made in silence. On this night, the will-o'-the-wisps were no longer pastel-hued, but deep red, purple, and somehow black. Any other occasion, this truly black in color light would have been a thing to behold, to ponder. But now, in these delicate moments, they sent a shiver down Naima's mind. They arrived at the edge, a rope leading down the pit resting on the ground directly between Miles Fa's two legs. All right, Naima whispered. Say something, loud enough for Lori to hear, to make sure she's paying attention. Then, I'll push you, like I'm responding to what you're saying. Okay. Ready? Yes. Go, said Naima, and she held her breath. Jennifer Dash, I love you. Jen was stunned, shocked. No one but Antonio de Anconio had ever said that to her, and while the attempted rapist didn't mean it, Jen knew in her heart, her soul, Miles Fa meant it. Naima was frozen. She forgot all about pushing. Jennifer Dash, I love you, he had said. Jen was too busy processing the surprise words to hear the thundering footsteps, quickening as they barreled towards them. And then, it was too late. The figure slammed into Miles Fa. Miles was knocked off his feet as he went flying through the air. He didn't fall over, though. Miles somehow managed to land his back still on hard ground. His shoulders and head stuck out over the edge, but he hadn't fallen over. Not yet. The second figure was on top of him immediately. The two equally strong, equally tall, equally attractive men wrestled on the edge of infinity under the moonlight. Marshal Winston, He was trying to throw Miles off. Jen was still frozen, now, unlike before, traumatized with confusing, conflicting thoughts. She wanted both men to win. Not just both men to be safe, no. She wanted Miles Faw to throw Marshall Winston over the edge. And she wanted Marshall Winston to chuck Miles into the wisps. Again, Jen's internal processing blocked out hearing what was coming next. More footsteps. Then... Number 25, David Foster Wallace. There's no coming back from suicide. Obviously, this is a literally true statement, but it is unavoidably true in grand narrative form as well. Suicide makes your life a tragedy. You can't avoid it. It can be a beautiful tragedy, but the thing as a whole, your entire life, if you choose to snuff it out, shall be marred by your final volition. David Foster Wallace was the best writer in America since maybe Herman Melville. A long time ago, I picked up his magnum opus, Infinite Jest, read all 1,200-odd pages, endnotes and all. As I read the epic tract, I was bored, grossed out, unamused, disenchanted, lost, frustrated, and skeptical that this universally lauded work of genius could ever live up to the hype. Here's a secret to be told in the dark. The book doesn't live up to its hype. Not while you're reading it, but with time. Years later, the design of the words, they remain. When all else begins to fade with mediocrity and memory, Infinite Jest does not. It haunts me. It laughs at my menial triumphs. It mocks my routines. Most importantly, it never lets me go. Mr. DFW, you made this, you made this, you made this, and you unmade yourself. Why did you go? Why did you choose to end your story with tragedy? Some say that all stories eventually end in tragedy. This writer doesn't know if that's true or not. Maybe when I quit sucking air, you'll all turn to me, point, and mock my pitiable death. Maybe. But until that day, I can play comedy. David Foster Wallace can't play comedy anymore. Why did he choose to not play anymore? I pity David Foster Wallace because he unmade himself and twisted the comedy to tragedy all too quickly. Remember, the world is merciless. It kills us all. But try to play. Every day, play with the innocence of a newborn. Play, and play until the world steals your breath. Don't force tragedy's hand. I beg you. In the air. Falling. Quick, old girl. Grab! Jennifer Dash's body slammed against the rough side of the pit. The shock of the hit choked her with pain. Her broken ribs sang out in agony. Her hands trembled. But, okay. It was okay. For now. Jen had somehow grabbed onto the rope, dangling above wisps. She looked up. Lorna von Schloss. She'd sprinted. Hit Jen. Laurie had everything planned out. Marshall Winston was never supposed to be there. Naima would come with her lover, and before Naima hit the kissing stranger to his doom, Laurie would end Naima. It was a dog-eat-dog world. Some lamb's blood had to be shed, and it sure as heck wasn't going to be Laurie's. And it wasn't going to be the man who swept her off her feet that morning, changed her world in an instant, kissed away her past, and with his tongue welcomed her to a future ripe with love. With Naima gone, Laurie and the mystery man could be together. That was the plan. At least, until she heard him say, "Jennifer Dash, I love you." That caused a pause, confusion. Then she watched, in horror, as her newfound love was absolutely creamed, dashed by the stupid, brooding skeptic. However, Lori was re-energized to see that her lover had fought back. Wasn't down for the count. Lori had to move. She decided to take out Naima while she was distracted. It seemed to work. Until that is, Lori saw Naima still hanging on for dear life, dangling onto the rope. Her first thought was to cut the rope. But with what? How? Meanwhile, the two boys were still scrappling. Marshall sticking his stupid little fingers into her lover's eye socket. It would be such a bummer if the dirtball gouged out an eyeball. But, Lori considered, it'd be okay. It'd work out okay. They just have to go with some sort of pirate courtship. He'd be Lori's one-eyed pirate Jack or something. It'd be okay. It'd still work. Comforted in this, Lori got on her knees, grabbed the rope Naima clung to, and started thrusting it against the wall of the pit, hoping to dislodge her fellow mulcher. Marshall Winston caught it first. He was still in the strong position, having Miles pinned and his limbs incapacitated. He happened to eye Lori. What on earth was she doing? And where was Naima? As Miles screamed, Marshall looked past him towards the deep maroon colors on the side of the pit. There! Naima! Marshall leapt up. He took a step towards Lori. "Put the rope down, Lori," Marshall said in an effort to defuse the situation. Miles now saw too. Bleeding from his left eye, he got up, took notes from Marshall, and mimicked him. "Yes, Lori. You have to let go of the rope." Lori did what her lover commanded. She let the rope go. Jennifer was just hanging on, but the release of the rope from Lori offered little help. She felt like she was being pulled down. Something was tugging on her feet, invisibly pulling. She kicked her feet, but nothing took the pressure away. She could hear the wisps now, louder than ever, the vibration of their calls strumming through every muscle of Jen's aching body. "I'm just helping. Making it so that we can be together," Lori pleaded to Miles. "That's not right," Miles said firmly. "You remember what you came here to do. You came here to jump." Marshall Winston turned a confused look at Miles, who was still working on coaxing the bald bleach blonde from San Diego. "You're going to jump, and you're going to do it now." "We were going to be together, and it was going to be so lovely." "Yes," Miles said. He turned to Marshall. "Help Jen." It took a second for Marshall to associate the word Jen with the girl he knew as Naima, but when he did, he was diligent to grab the rope and pull up. Jen reached up for Marshall's hand. Holding the rope with her transplanted arm, Jen reached her other arm up to catch Marshall's hand. Like nothing at all, he grabbed onto her and pulled Jennifer Dash up and out of the pit to hell. The wisps suddenly went silent in her head. Jen and Marshall Winston scurried away from the edge, caught their breath, and watched, everyone tense and unbelieving, as Miles worked his remorseless magic. "We're going to be together forever." "Really?" Lorna von Schloss cried, hopeful for the first time in minutes. She opened her arms in hope to be embraced by her tongue-full lover. "Not here. Down there." The wisps pounded louder. "They're waiting for you. And so am I." "Miles, don't!" Jen pleaded. He ignored her. Jen, realizing that Lori's life hung in the balance of this moment, decided to intervene physically, to pull Lori away from the brink, but Marshall held her in place. "Once you're down there, we'll be together. Finally." You'll come too?" Lori asked in the voice of a little girl. "I'm already there. Let go. Let go. I'll be there. I already am. I'm waiting. Don't keep me waiting, Lori." "You know my name?" "Yes, I know your name." "What's yours? What's your real name?" "You don't know it, silly?" Foss said. "No." The look on Lori's face expressed not the confident, get-it-done personality that Naima knew, but a little orphan girl, hoping to find a parent to love her and make everything okay. Miles somehow was reverting Lori back into childhood. "The answer is down there." Lori peered into the depths. "Down there?" "Right. Yes. Down there." Lori smiled. In one moment of decision, her muscles let go. They wouldn't hold her up anymore. Lori let herself fall. And just like that, Lorna von Schloss was gone. For the moment, the four-person dance of death was over. The three remaining silhouettes in the night looked at each other, each wondering what happens next. Miles Faw broke his promise that night with Jennifer Dash, I love you. He'd crossed a line. He didn't just say the words, he projected them. He projected them into the heart of the object of his affection. He'd gone and done it. He rigged the game. And yet, even so, here he stood, alone, while Jennifer Dash was firmly in the arms of another. The look on Jen's face towards Miles was scornful, anger from Jennifer, and contained rage bursting forth from the man that just tried to kill him. The situation was tender. One wrong move and the dance could commence once more. 4 had gone down to 3. 3 could easily go down to 2, and protecting Jen was getting trickier and trickier. It was under this stress that Miles Faw played his next card. I have to show you something.
Someone says, pack your bags, pack everything you need. You never know what misery will come to you.
Hey guys, all the music and sound effects used in this episode are appropriately attributed on our show notes page, which can be found on my website, dantestack.com. As we tell you every week, Solve the World is going to be 100 episodes long. But right after we finish episode 50, we are going to be done with part 2, and I promise you, part 3 is going to be a whole different animal. And also, before we start part 3, we're going to do another Solving the World episode, which is a behind-the-scenes episode where I answer your questions. So, as you're listening, and if there's any questions about the show or about how I make the show, keep those in mind, and at any point, you can go ahead and send those questions to me, to my direct email address. That's dantestack@gmail.com, dantestack@gmail.com. And then in the Solving the World Part 2 episode, I'll take a shot at trying to answer your questions. Thanks, guys. The mental athleticism of Miles Faw has been something that's long been hinted at, but until this evening never fully on display. Now, we know. Miles Faw, with merely a few choice words, sentenced Lorna von Schloss to a judgment of a mortal fall down a deep pit. Was it worth it? Will Lorna's death prove necessary? Miles is gambling a lot to be here at the center, and we're about to find out the full extent of his motivation. Jen, Miles, and maybe Marshall Winston are about to set course for a new adventure, all the while scout further with soon-to-be thousands of children, learn the ropes in the undisclosed Omno safe haven. The stakes are piling up. Where's it all headed? Find out next week on Solve the World.
Can you see the future? Oh, say, can you see the future? Oh, say, can you see